This podcast is sponsored by the SAS. That's right, the Shemale Appreciation Society.
Mm,
Um, Join the SAS to, well, get all your shemale goods.
that's a fucking deal, mate. Now, unfortunately, we have to stoop to such fucking disgusting, degenerate measures as selling ourselves
Yeah.
out in order to try and revive this podcast. Welcome to the Gravedigger and the Bullshit Artist. You might have noticed that we haven't put out an episode for like 2 months. Um, well, that's for multiple reasons. I think there was a period, Oscar, I think, of like where we just didn't
I had
do
my
it.
period.
Yeah, well, you had a period.
Mm.
And you know how that is. It's a cycle. It's like something monthly, blah blah blah.
It's the moon, yeah.
Yeah, it's with the moon. But moons come and
I mean,
go, and
yeah.
we were feeling that it was time to make a podcast again, and we tried, but it was just kind of botched. It just
We
didn't.
ballsed up the last two. So this is podcast episode 11.3.
Yeah, 11.3.
11.3.
Third
I
time's
think
the
that
charm. You know how it
third time
is.
is the charm. Lucky charm.
Yeah.
And we've had to stoop so low that we are both shemales now.
Well,
Which is why we have this sponsorship, because the sisterhood looks after each other.
yeah. Well, the money was pretty good, wasn't it?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, pack of cigarettes,
Yeah.
a 3.5. Can't complain about that, can you?
Yeah. I mean, it would have been a bit awkward, for me to tell them, actually, I don't smoke anymore, because they would have been just like, huh? What? Fuck you. So I just took the cigarettes.
Yeah.
Um, so I've also relapsed on my tobacco addiction, so that's nice. But,
Oh,
I mean, those are the sacrifices you have to make when you're in this business, because it's a hard
no,
world out there.
especially because, yeah, I mean, they told me that cigarettes almost works as a gender hormone reverser. So
Mm.
yeah,
Well,
so
I, I
that's what's
heard
going on.
I heard on a podcast this guy talking about how, like, in terms of like learning and like neuroplasticity and stuff, nicotine is one of the main chemicals that's involved in helping your brain acquire new skills and learn stuff, right?
Well, I don't think it's that so much. I think there's a separate chemical called acetylcholine, which is very similar to nicotine. You have acetylcholine receptors, and that's where nicotine binds to, I think.
Uh huh.
Because it's chemically similar, much in the way that like LSD is similar to serotonin, I
Yes.
think. But
Yeah.
then you have chemicals called nicotinamides. You
Ah,
can't. I don't think they actually do the same things.
well, it might have been that he mentioned, but he said, because people do say that like smoking helps you focus, right?
Mm,
And a lot of authors smoke when they write,
mm.
and various sort of creatives as well. I mean, I've told you before that, like, I used to often get this thing where I would smoke and then I would sit down and just make a drawing.
Mm. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you don't. All part of it is you don't want to get up from the drawing halfway to have a cigarette if you do want one. Just smoke it beforehand, get it over and done with, and then just draw for a bit.
I don't know if that was the process there,
Well, yeah, that's my process anyway.
because that was back in the day when I didn't really have like a regularized smoking habit. Like I wasn't
Mm.
just regularly having a couple blends a day, uh, in some sort of predictable way. It was more so like, because it was there was this association, like, to spend some time just out in the window, you know,
Mm.
getting some fresh air and just having some time to think.
Yeah, getting some real fresh air there, aren't you?
Yeah,
When you're smoking cigarettes, yeah.
yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Um,
It's like it's always bundled with smoking, and you don't realize that you could just do that, and probably half the reason you actually enjoy doing that is because you're getting some nice fresh air out the window and you're taking in the sounds of the city and all that, and you're looking at a nice view. And so,
mm, I don't know. I mean, I have the same exact view. I mean, I guess you do too, but Like your view is more, it's got a bigger scope than my view. Having looked out your window, there's a lot more that you can see and find like interesting than looking out my window, where it's just the same fucking back gardens that have always been there.
Mm.
You know, I mean, recently we've had people doing like work on the house next door, and that's been a fucking pain. And there's like a load, they're building an extension basically, so there's fuckloads of scaffolding, um, basically right next to my window. It's and they're so loud, man. The worst thing is, like my dad was saying this, scaffolders, dumbest fucks there are. Um, the dumbest guys, apparently.
Mm.
Like people who have no other skills and can't even do like plastering or laying bricks become scaffolders. That's the sort of level, and you can tell that when you interact with them as well. Like when you walk past, it's like sort of speaking to an orc, actually.
Mm.
Um, so I actually am of the mind that real life orcs do exist,
Oh
and they're
yeah.
all scaffolders.
Well, it's interesting how like there's this sort of transience between orcs and man. Like,
Hmm.
there's always this go-between. Like in Tolkien's writings, there was always this sort of go-between between orcs and men. Part of that is like the Uruk-hai, which are like the, super orcs. But then
Yeah.
when he like describes these men who like work for Saruman and they go like to the Shire to fuck some shit up, they're described as being like these sort of half-orc guys who are like really horrible and crude.
I think we need to do just more. I mean, I've said it a billion times. We just need more like different weird things in the world, like with genetic engineering and shit. Let's have some green people with really big teeth and like messy hair and shit that have, 70 IQ generally, and let's call them orcs.
Mm.
Let's just split the species up. You know why? It doesn't matter why. It's just people want diversity in the world nowadays, and I'm all for that. But I'm not for the boring types of diversity. Oh well done. You know, you're Asian. You know, you're Asian. We've had Asians for fucking centuries, thousands of years. Maybe even tens of thousands. I want green people. I want blue people, and I want fucking Thanos
Mm.
now. Actually, I'm actually getting quite bored. It seems like scientists do nothing but stall and ponder in these, yeah, well done. You're making vaccines and fucking stopping climate change or whatever. Making renewable energy. But for fuck's sake, like, where are my green people? I mean, there is actually a project going on now to remake the Mammoth Steppe, which is basically this biome, basically from Eastern Europe all the way to some parts in North America, where mammoths used to graze, basically. Um,
Mhm.
and there used to be all this grassland, and there used to be so much biodiversity, like different types of oxes and horses and mammoths, obviously, and sheep and deer and all that good shit. But it started getting really cold, and humans moved in and killed some shit, and then the mammoths died out, obviously, and the mammoths held back the trees. The mammoths destroyed trees, which meant grassland could grow,
Mhm.
and that supported loads of animals. So they basically made this place called Pleistocene Park that's going to that's already had introduced to it a load of horses, loads of deer, loads of sheep, and all the sort of things that would have been there back in the day. And the next goal is to bring back mammoths. And that goes to what I'm saying. Let's bring back some extinct species and let's make some new ones. No?
I wouldn't mind seeing a mammoth. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're that much bigger than elephants, so you could raise one. You could gestate one in an elephant. That's just a hairy elephant. I mean, maybe it's not actually a mammoth, unless we actually have mammoth DNA, which I don't know if we do have. Do we have like actual mammoth DNA?
I don't think we want to get bogged down in the specifics. Just make it seem like a mammoth.
Yeah, if it's a hairy elephant, that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
But I would kind of like it to be an actual mammoth, you know.
Although
I
if
think that'd
global
be
warming is a real thing, I don't see why elephants would want to get an extra layer of fur.
well, because it's cold in Siberia,
Hmm.
so yeah, they're gonna have to be honest. Fucking bastards. Also, the permafrost under Siberia benefits a lot from like having animals there to graze on it because it means in the cold temperatures ice basically grows and keeps trapping the methane under the earth. Whereas if like whereas like snow basically isn't as good. Um, it can actually like keep the permafrost like fairly warm, I think, because it's a fairly good insulator, like during the winter and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But animals like treading and everything gets disperses the snow, and the colder temperatures can get underneath, keep the methane steady, and that only happens if there's grassland, which only happens if mammoths are like fighting back the trees and stuff. And basically, they're saying that grasslands are like the most productive like biome, basically, in terms of natural diversity and like energy and stuff. Although I think the Amazon is probably more diverse because there's so much shit in there. I think it's more to do, they said productive as opposed to like diverse. I don't think it's like the most diverse area because it's just like grass and some animals, but it all really like keeps in check, you know? The animals keep the plants in check, the plants keep the animals in check, and everything keeps the ice in check, and it all turns out good until like one little thing gets changed and it causes like a positive feedback loop and it just spirals out of control.
Yeah, which is a shame really, because would be cool to imagine if like it wasn't just like cultures around the equator and stuff that had access to elephants. Imagine if
Mm.
you had like Slavic and Scandinavians with like mammoths, right? Mammoth riders.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Like, oh man, and that's what they are doing it though. I think, like, I think that is the next step for this park. You know, it's not like a park you can visit. It's just a really big stretch of land that they reserved for just creating more biodiversity and shit. And I'm pretty excited about the prospect of seeing mammoths in the real world. You know,
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I don't
How do you think mammoth meat tastes?
know. It probably tastes quite similar to elephant meat, I'd imagine. Maybe a bit more. Um, what's the word? Gamey. Bit more gamey.
Mm.
I think it'd be more like I think it'd be like what you know, like pigs, right?
Yeah.
And how boars taste more like strongly, not necessarily in like a nice way, just like they have a more musky taste.
I mean, I don't,
Supposedly, I don't think I've ever eaten a boar.
I don't
But
know
this
that,
is
but
I just think it'll probably be like that. They'll probably be like the boar equivalent of elephant meat, you know?
mhm.
And elephant meat is really nice.
Is it?
It's really tasty. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I actually have an elephant farm in my back garden.
You know, you could have not said that, and I would not been sure whether you had elephant meat or not. But now I'm pretty certain that you haven't.
No, I haven't. I don't think I will either. I think I'd feel kind of bad about eating an elephant, to be honest.
Yeah, why eat an elephant? That's just.
Like they're smart, gentle giants, and they don't deserve to be eaten. I don't think. You know, it's like eating a gorilla. It's like what the fuck? Why are you gonna eat a gorilla? They're so like just calm. They're one of the calmest animals. You know.
Mm.
In other news, I've my leg is fine now. I guess actually they didn't, anyone listen to this, um, isn't like a direct friend of ours in some way,
Now
probably
you're
didn't know.
reaching for it, mate. Bloody hell.
Yeah, probably probably didn't know that my leg was fucked because we didn't even record one last week.
Oh,
Last Sunday, fucked up my leg. Um, well, technically it's Wednesday now, but so I don't mean last Sunday. The Sunday before that, fucked up my leg. Um, Twisted it weirdly or bent it weirdly. I'm not quite sure at the knee, but it's fine now. So there you go. That's kind of my non-story. It was
yeah. I
the
mean,
first few days had crutches, and then after that, yeah, pretty much fine.
I think it is interesting, like when somebody has an injury. Do you think you've had like a meaningful experience out of it?
Yeah, I'd say so actually, because I mean, I'd say this is probably the worst physical injury I've ever done to myself. Well, it wasn't deliberate, but you know what I mean.
Mm.
Like, this is the worst physical injury I've had to go through or whatever. I've never broken a bone. I've never had like appendicitis or had like anything like that taken out or kidney stones. Um, I mean, yeah, I don't have anything like that, so. I don't have any like pre-existing like medical conditions. I don't need to take any medication or anything like that or medicine. Like, so this is the worst, sort of most grievous thing that I have had, and in that way, I'm kind of lucky, you know,
Yeah.
that this is the worst I've had is a fairly good thing. It kind of made me realize that in a way as well. But also just having something like, um, I think we've talked about this. So having something like that is like definitely wrong with you means that you're not like stressing over little things in your brain,
Yeah.
like because you have an actual thing to overcome as opposed to just, I don't know, sort of entertaining yourself by making yourself hate yourself or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
it's like, whenever the moment something happens that's quite clearly outside of the regular spectrum of your comfortable experience, it puts everything in perspective immediately.
Mm,
Um, I haven't had an
yeah.
injury like that at all, anything like that. I've had friends who has stuff like that, like you, and I had a friend who once in primary school that broke his hand once on that swing in Ham. um, I wasn't there when he broke it, but I remember, like, for a while he had a cast on his arm, and I remember stuff that happened while his arm was broken. Like
Mm.
it's quite a vivid thing. And of course there was that time when cut himself on a wine bottle.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was whack.
That was see,
Oh yeah,
that
it
was an
is weird.
experience.
It is weird the fact that you can like not lose control of a limb so much, but not that limb is basically useless to you for like a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
or whatever, or however long it was. I mean, for me, the doctor said when I went in, they gave me crutches, but they said don't hop around on your crutches and like keep your leg bent. Like these crutches are to like help support you, but you still got to put weight on your leg and still walk on it like a bit, even if you're putting like extra pressure on the floor with your crutches so that there's not too much pressure on your leg. You still need to do that extension and retraction of the muscle and the knee and all that stuff, because otherwise it just stiffens up, um,
Yeah.
and it's even worse. Um, and honestly, I think that was really really good advice because I went to the hospital Monday morning because it happened Sunday night and it wasn't really like an emergency. Um, and by Wednesday afternoon, yeah, I wasn't using crutches anymore. It was more annoying not to. It was more annoying to use crutches than not to.
Mm.
Um, and I do credit a lot of that to like continuing to do stuff with the leg. Not nothing major. I didn't go any walks and like cycle anywhere. I didn't like go out for those first like 5 days or so. Um, but I was still like still going downstairs and going to the garden and doing sort of fairly passive things, with it, but still things that involved it moving. And and stuff like that. And honestly, it's much better. Um,
Well, stairs has got to be a good one, doesn't it? Because you're like bending it every which way.
mm. It's great as well because I mean, having something like a broken leg or whatever. I mean, my leg was broken. I don't know what the exact condition or term you would use for it was, but having something like that is kind of interesting because it forces you to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Um, and just the act of adapting to it is in itself quite like mentally stimulating. I don't know why. Like 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 trying to figure out how the best way to get up the stairs is while you have this leg injury. It's actually quite interesting.
Well, I think it's
Figuring out
because
how.
you're like
Sorry, yeah.
accessing like a part of your brain that you usually don't mess with too much, you know, because movement
Mm,
is usually left to your unconscious. But once you have to start thinking about it, it's not just that you're consciously paying attention to it; you're consciously directing it.
mm.
It's almost like you're still using that part of the brain. You just you know you're like manually controlling that part of the brain to do
Yeah,
movement.
you're paying attention as the calculations are coming in or whatever.
Yeah.
Like your brain is sort of trying to figure out how is best to step on it. How it's best to like put weight on it or distribute it with your other leg.
Mm.
Like standing in the shower is annoying, um, because you're just in the same place.
Yeah.
So even if you don't put too much weight on your left leg, which is the one that was fucked, even then your right leg starts being like, oh fuck's sake,
Mm.
please, like because you start putting all your support on your right leg, and it's just yeah, it's a whack one, but it was fairly sort of stimulating, and it meant that I got to watch like nearly the entire MCU again. So
Mm.
yeah, I'd say it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I quite enjoyed. I wouldn't say enjoyed it. I mean, it's a pain in the ass not being able to walk, and it's not all like at least not being able to walk very far. Um, and like I had to keep making sure I stretched it and all that shit. But honestly, I feel better for having gone through it. Is what I guess I mean, you
Mm.
know.
So,
So
would you say that it was a meaningful experience?
I would say it was a meaningful experience, or in total. Yeah, I would say it was the most meaningful experience of 2019, probably not 2019, 2021. Fucking hell,
Uh,
that was tragic. 2019, where
20.
did I get that from?
It was 1974.
I mean, it's 8:16 p.m. on my computer screen.
Mm.
That's 16. But then maybe my brain. Oh,
Your
just don't worry
brain
about it.
averaged between
The thing
16
is,
and 21.
2019 still feels like a future year to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
like 2020 felt like a future year, and 2021 feels like even more of a future year.
I mean 2020 definitely made me like just sort of forget about 2019 and 18 and fucking whatever the fuck came before that.
Oh, I've definitely forgotten about 2018 and 2019. Well, I thought I had anyway.
I mean I can't tell you one thing that happened in 2019. It's like
Hmm.
history started in 2020. You know, this chapter.
I think I started blemming in 2019.
Oh yeah, our drug escapades were like hitting their peak around then, weren't
Yeah, yeah.
they? Yeah.
But I think weed was 2018.
Oh, definitely.
So, and I think ketamine was 2018.
Yeah.
I think MDMA was 2018 as well.
Well, it was
But
that.
acid,
It was the
acid was
winter.
2019,
Yeah,
I
well, it
think.
was that winter 2018, 2019 when we
Yeah,
started
yeah.
doing
When we did
everything.
loads of weird shit. Yeah, that was an odd one.
Obviously, don't anymore. You know, we don't. We're
I
responsible,
hadn't I haven't done drugs in
law-abiding
well,
adults.
since at least like 5 p.m. So
I mean, that's kind of concerning, actually.
you think I need to re-up?
I think, yeah. I mean, we don't want you like, getting like shivers or passing out. God knows what,
Don't want me going through withdrawal
Mm.
symptoms through the podcast. I was thinking this yesterday. I'm not sure which one to quit first: smoking weed all the time or smoking blems as just a thing. You know, not I don't really care about like smoking blends socially. That's one thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of fine with like doing that. But I don't want to. I don't know. I just don't like the idea of just smoking when I'm just at home doing nothing. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's always, the problem part. I was of the mind when I thought about it. I was like, look, it's a fallacy to think, oh, I'll just rein it back and keep it limited. That's bullshit. That's
Yeah.
that's how you got into this in the first place. So, what I think if you wanna like take a chance at actually trying to develop some higher level of self-control where you can afford to do that without taking risks of withdrawing, going back into the habit, you have to sort of, cleanse the palate first, you know.
Mm.
And that doesn't necessarily, I don't think it necessarily has to mean that you don't have any baccy whatsoever, you know. I'll allow myself to a bit of yours every now and then, but
The thing is, it's like
definitely not
when you have
buying any on
pouch.
yourself. No
Well, that's the thing.
pouches, no
I mean,
cigarettes,
no,
nothing.
you're not going to be buying any. Rufus isn't going to be buying any. None of my other mates can be buying any. So there is literally no chance of like, oh, can I get a bit of backy for someone? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like if I have a backy pouch, I'm probably going to smoke cigarettes from that backy pouch. You know?
yeah.
But if I don't have a backy pouch, then there's not really any sort of way of me getting backy, I guess. I mean, um, I guess I could probably steal some cigarettes from my dad or some shit, but like it's just yeah, it's a whack one, honestly. But I'm not. I'm saying like by the end of this year, by 2020, by the start of 2022, I will want to stop regularly smoking cigarettes. I think that's like my goal.
Yeah.
It's my New Year's goal, even though it's nearly April.
No, New Year's is stupid. Don't heed that.
Yeah, you don't need to do like yeah. Because I always think like you don't know what your goals for a year are until you're in the year,
No.
you know?
Well, and the most absurd part is the idea that you start it from the beginning and that's it. You just maintain it 100% from the very beginning. It's ridiculous.
Mm. They say it's better to have like general sort of goals, than like specific goals,
Yeah,
I
more
think.
like themes.
Yeah,
Rather than
themes, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. Like, you do go through like phases where, you're not doing one specific thing to be healthier, but, you know, you're cutting down on your sugar consumption a bit. You're doing a bit more exercise. You're smoking a bit less. Whatever,
Hmm.
You're not doing like one major thing. Or maybe some major things are part of that whole transition, but they're not. The whole point is like it's just doing little things to sort of edge you in that right direction, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the sort of theme for a year, I guess. I don't know what my theme for this year is. Maybe just like I don't know. I don't know what my theme for this year is. Do you have a theme?
Um, get fat stacks, but be developing upon that.
Yeah, fat stacks and girls with the fat backs.
Well, because the fat stacks is a legitimate theme. But more on that is that
Do you want the girls with the fat backs as well?
that would
Or
be a bonus. But that's like above and beyond sort of
so
thing.
you are above the fat backs. You're not about the thin backs,
Um,
or are you? Are you just not that?
I'd consider it
Are you
preferable.
back?
Well, it
Are you
depends.
back focused? Are you focused on the back?
No, I don't think I'm focused on the back. But I
Mm,
think the back is a more of like a well, it's the back. It's more subliminal.
mm,
I think it. You know, I want the back to be good, but not to focus on it. I want it to be a good backdrop.
mm. Yeah, you don't want to be like a hippo.
Solid foundations are extremely good, but you're not, checking out the house and going, let me check out those foundations. I mean,
Yeah,
some people are about that, but I'm more of a roof guy as well. I like a good roof.
you have a good roof.
Yeah,
Mm.
a good balcony, if you know what I mean. So what do you do with those walking thing sticks? Do you have to give them back, or do you just sort of keep them?
Um, maybe. Uh,
Are you gonna like twin
I,
tower them?
I literally don't know what to do with them. I mean, they're actually quite useful for just doing general leg stretches, actually.
Mm.
Like, I don't know about you, but I can't keep my leg straight and put it and like keep going until it's at a like 90-degree angle, you know?
I'm extremely inelastic. I'm terrible at all that. Yeah.
Yeah, if I lie down, I can't go like, yeah, I can't do that 90-degree angle like at all. But if I'm using the sticks, I can force myself to do that and it makes it a bit easier. Um, which gets an actual stretch going, which is good.
Mm.
So they're actually quite useful because you can sort of cross them over and one can support like a bit of the foot and then the other one under it is supporting the other crutch. So yeah, it works really well actually for stuff like that. But I'm not sure what you're supposed to do. Maybe you're supposed to give them back. I'm not sure. Probably will at some point if that is what you're supposed to do.
I think you should twin tower them.
Twin tower them.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Stick them in
I
the
mean,
ground like they're twin
you know
towers.
jet fuel wouldn't be able to melt them.
Well, aren't they made of like plastic?
Nah, like they're made of steel beams.
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, you can do the full simulation. Put the
They are made
C4
of metal though. Most of it is made with metal,
timed
like the actual
explosive.
paint.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what metal it is. Um, but the handle is yeah, the handle and like the bit that you put your arm through and stuff like that, and the bottom bit is all plasticky,
Yeah.
rubbery shit, whatever.
Well, I had this observation recently that you know there was the sort of 9/11 era, post 9/11,
Mm.
and then came the 9/11 joke era when it was funny and hip to make jokes about 9/11.
Mm.
But what I've realized is it's been so long, 9/11 is going to become official history this year by the rules of r/history memes. And the
I thought it
9,
already was. Or is it 20 years, not 15?
it's 20.
Oh, right.
Unless they changed it, because I remember there was some controversy about it. Well,
No, you might be right. I think you are right.
it was definitely 20 at some point, it probably still is. But
Yeah.
it's like the 9/11 joke era has come to an end now, I think. People, it's not like, 9/11 isn't funny like it used to be.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fading now.
How how do you think humor like evolved as a coping mechanism for things like that?
Well, it's always been, humor has been the way that we uh,
But what
reconcile with the brutal reality of life.
what is humor though? Like,
It's
I
to
don't I
like,
don't really understand why it exists.
it's
I mean,
sort of like, well, yeah, it is a coping mechanism because there is a reality, right? And, our brains aren't actually, I suppose, you know, we struggle with things because our brains aren't, ideally suited for dealing with reality because it's it's just a bit much.
Mm.
We try to do things like reason and all this and that, but that comes up against the the rather random and sort of opportunistic nature of life where a lot of it is just out of your control and things can go incredibly well or just utterly horribly and get derailed completely, and you have to be able to accept both of the situations as they come. And the way to do that is just to, well, you have to accept the absurdity. So you sort of, comedy is about pointing out the absurdity to people, and that's often done, I think, by creating a premise that isn't entirely accurate. It's not about depicting reality at its most precise. It's about making a sort of caricature to to highlight an element of reality that from our personal experience feels just as absurd and insane, and we just can't help but laugh at that.
Mm. But I mean, why is it that we find absurd things funny? That's another question. Like, is it sort of like a neurological thing, and it's like a laughter is like a way of relieving some sort of built up mental tension or something, you know?
Well, we definitely get something out of imagining things that we know can't be real, and because they can't be real, because they aren't real.
But a lot of comedy is like around real things. That's some of the best comedy is about like, real things that are actually absurd.
Well, that's
Uh,
and that's where the link of absurdity is.
mm,
You you again you create absurdity to highlight the subjective absurdity in our experience of reality,
mm,
and that clicks, you know, and then that brings out well, you know, it brings out feelings of like being able to relate to others, you know, and the desire to just laugh it off because you don't want to take it seriously. That's the thing about absurdity. You're not going to take it seriously. Taking it seriously is a chore. You don't want to do it. But if it's actually real, that's terrifying. And so the flip side of that is just to not take it seriously, and that means finding it funny.
I think it's definitely true where sometimes some comedy that I've seen does come off as a bit too like real almost, and it does lose that funniness value, you know? It it,
Mm.
it it gets to the point where you're just thinking, you might still be engaged in what the person's saying because it's just interesting, but it's not necessarily, it gets to a point sometimes where it's not necessarily like funny anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It's just something interesting that you're listening to. And I think that definitely is true. Like certain bits of comedy can be a bit too real. I think the best comedy is probably like when you find something that is real and yet absurd,
Yeah.
just by itself,
And
like
a good like source of that always is actually ourselves because
yeah, because we're walking contradictions most of the time.
yeah. So pointing out the absurdities within ourselves is always a safe bet, and that's a form of relief, as well, because
Mm,
taking yourself seriously all the time is also a chore when you're such a ridiculous thing that is somehow trying to cope, uh, and it's not easy.
mm. Yeah, we are odd beings. We are strange things. I mean, do you ever get the feeling like you're not even like a human? Like you, like you're just a sort of a thing in a human body?
Well,
I
why not
sometimes feel
both?
like I sometimes feel like I'm a bit of an alien in a human's body.
Well,
Like I've been sent to just observe the monkey people,
mm,
you know? I don't remember it because that would like taint my it would taint my discovery if I remembered like my past life and what I've been sent to do because I bring in my bias from that.
mm.
So I'm actually just an alien who's been sent to Earth to like study, but some of that alien mind is still present in my mind, which is why I'm not fully like everyone else. I don't know.
Um,
I often feel distinct, and not just in the case of being an individual. I often feel like I do not conform to what the majority of humans do.
okay, 2 points I have,
Okay.
and I hope you don't mind that I'll just, for one of them, I'll just say what I said when you said this yesterday,
Yeah.
when we were at the Green. But, uh, you know, it's like, well, you are both at the same time. You are apart from everybody else because there is this perception of humanity that you and others share that by necessity doesn't include you because it doesn't include anyone in particular. It's a
Mm.
generalization, and it's not actually representative of anything real and concrete. But and so you are quote unquote part of that, but in your mind you are by necessity apart from that because you observe
Yeah.
it from the outside. And then also there's the part of your identity where you an extent to which you do identify with others as part of the human race or as part of the country or your family or anything else that links you to other humans.
Mm.
The other point is that it is basically just individuality. That is the manifestation of our sense of individuality and free will.
Yeah, and
Because
I'm imagining
it's all
anyone
about
listening to that.
feeling that you're not a conformist, right? Nobody
Yeah,
really wants to feel like a conformist.
and I imagine people listening to this, especially probably people who don't know me personally, but maybe some of the people who do, probably thinks it sounds like very narcissistic when I said what I said, you know,
But at the same
just
time,
now.
they understand you because everyone has this feeling, right? I don't know what the name for it is,
Well,
but
and
it's
I
this
understand
idea
it
that
because,
you're the only real human, for example, right?
well, I
Just sort
understand
of
it
an
because
inversion of that.
we were in the park yesterday, you know,
Yeah,
and I was going like, oh, what a swarm of humanity, what a plague of fucking filthy, meaty humans, right?
yeah,
Um, and then I just sort, and it wasn't the first time I've realized this, but it probably won't be the last either. That to anyone else, I am just another one of those fleshy, meaty humans
yeah.
that's just there taking up space that could be occupied by just I don't know, blank air, I guess, and that person would be all the happier for it, you
Mm.
know. Um,
Well, yeah, and I guess it's just like when you're in that situation, it's about the extent to which you're willing to just indulge in the swarm of meatiness and realize that actually this gives you an opportunity to get lost in the in the swarm in a way that you wouldn't really be able to get away with if there was no one else around, you know.
mm,
It's a big massive heap of indulgence, you know, because you get carried on by the fact that, oh, everyone, you know, I consider all these people with such disdain. I can lower myself to that level in a sort of, you know, and then that way you sort of keep your superego at bay in order to take some pleasure in life for a moment
yeah, well, I
and not
mean,
feel
that's the
like you
thing.
have to judge yourself all the time.
I mean, every time I have thoughts like this, I always realize that to everyone else, I'm literally the exact same as what I'm complaining about.
Yeah,
Um, so I do understand that. It's just I think it's just one of those sort of, I don't know. You have sort of thoughts that just pop into your head, whether you want them to or not. Uh, I don't know.
yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, I mean, do you ever have that? I mean, that was my question. Do you ever have that feeling like you are like an alien?
Um, Probably at some points when I was like really high. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. When I trip, there's this feeling of like not that I'm an alien. I am a human, very much so, and that
Mm,
feeling that you have of being apart from others is what makes you human, right? Cows don't get those feelings about when they see other cows. So
yeah. I guess it's theory of it's theory of mind or whatever it's called, or
mm,
theory of self, or something like that. Where like at the age of about 4 years old, you realize not every other thing knows exactly what you know.
yeah,
And most animals don't have that. Most animals don't actually have that. It's this tends to be the more intelligent animals. I think some primates have it. Some of the great apes, maybe some smarter birds or something. I'm not quite sure. But in humans, it develops around like 3 or 4, I think, that you realize that you aren't the same as your surroundings or whatever, which
yeah,
is a weird thought because I can't imagine not knowing that now.
yeah. Well, it's
But
that sort
but
of
then you're on acid and it sort of clicks again, I guess. You know,
yeah,
there's so like I don't know. There's so many. I feel like people naturally gravitate. This is part of my like reasoning, I guess, like weird reasoning for feeling separate. People naturally gravitate for some reason to where other people are. Um, well, obviously it's because people are social animals, but even people who they're not going to be social with, it seems to be for some reason people just sit near other people. Like if you've ever been on an empty bus, if you've ever been on an empty bus and or like the top half is empty, and you're sitting there and some guy literally sits like 2 seats behind you or something, or he sits the seats next to you. not not the one right next to you, but the two on the other side of the bus, whatever. Like, even though he could be sitting anywhere, you know. I mean, I did a little experiment once, and it's not. I mean, believe me, this wasn't a very in-depth experiment or very thorough at all. But one time we were walking from the changing rooms in PE class in Teddington,
Mhm.
um, to the tennis courts in by the rec. Well, not tennis, the volleyball courts on the rec, right?
Mhm.
Um, and on the way there, I decided to do a little experiment. I wanted to see if people would sort of naturally like follow like a person who's in on like yeah, who's at the front of like a queue or whatever.
Mhm.
And kinda like I brought myself to like the front of the queue of the people who were all walking to the volleyball court. And if I went around the right side of a tree, you know,
Mhm.
everyone else would sort of go around the right side, or at least most people, you know.
Yeah.
Or if I went around the left side, they'd do the left. Or if I went a specific distance from something, even though it's not necessarily like you know mathematically the best route or whatever, like people would generally sort of veer the same way that I'm veering to the side, whatever,
Mm.
you know. And I noticed that. I mean, I only did it once. It was just one of those sort of casual thoughts. I mean, I was already at like the front. I think I just was like, let's see if people just sort of naturally follow people, and it seemed to work. It seemed to be validated at least that one time. Um, I think people just sort of naturally follow other people. You know.
Well, you don't need to tell me. I've read about World War Two. You know,
Yeah,
in 1933, a lot of people naturally followed this one guy, and man, didn't
yeah,
he didn't take him a nice place. He showed them hell.
mm, yeah. Fucking Neville Chamberlain. What a
Fucking
wanker.
wanker. His mustache as well. It's absolute sod.
Fucking Roosevelt. What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck, FDR?
I bet he went
I
to
wish
Eton.
polio killed you. Wanker. No, I'm
Fucking
joking.
Luigi ass motherfucker.
I've heard there's a campaign to get Woodrow Wilson's name removed from all public buildings
Well,
because
'cause
he was like because he
racismus.
was a racist.
Yeah.
But like
Go ahead.
everyone back then was
Hey,
racist.
look, man. I don't really care about the reason. I just say like, why do we name things after dead people anyway? Like, give shit some new names. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not opposed to just giving shit new names for the reasoning of giving shit new names.
mm,
It's when you're changing something because like I don't know. Yeah, that's always seemed a bit weird. Like there's something that's been named after a guy, and the things with Woodrow Wilson is he did a lot of good things that were like very progressive. You know,
mm,
it was literally the only thing that he was like a cunt with was race, right? Everything else he was way ahead of his times. Compared to literally everyone who was doing politics at the time. Well, maybe not literally, but he was way ahead of the
I
times
don't
in
know. I'd say Roosevelt was still better.
well, yeah, sure, but the point is that even though Wilson only had this, well, even though Wilson was doing all these good things, people just want to focus on the one bad thing about his personality. To say this guy can't have like buildings named after him anymore. You can't call like a thing the Wilson Institute or the Wilson Hall,
Mm.
of drama, the Wilson School. Like it doesn't really matter. Most people probably won't even know it relates to Woodrow Wilson unless it literally says Woodrow Wilson. Most people probably won't know. Like you're not celebrating a racist if you do that. Well, I guess you kind of are, but most people don't know that it's you're doing that, and it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, because he's dead. His children are probably dead, if he even had any. I'm not really quite sure. Um, it's one of those things. There's no point getting hung up on. I mean, we have all these like in Britain, all these like palaces that belong to like King George the Third or whatever, or you got a statue of some don, and it's like, what are you going to start removing them? Or what about like a statue of like a British soldier who served in World War I? I doubt they were the most like socially liberal people.
Mm.
Those British soldiers in World War I who got shot. We still have statues because they died for the country and did a service. You know, in all those other ways. But if you ask them what they thought about like women voting or, you know, black people marrying white people or whatever, they probably wouldn't. They probably have an opinion which today you'd be disgusted by, you know. But we still have their statues because they did something good.
So what you're saying is Woodrow Wilson was based.
Woodrow Wilson was based.
Hmm.
He was a based man.
He was based on Democrat Party values. Let's not forget.
Yeah. Fucking Democrats and the racist KKK. What the fuck? Fucking Democrats.
Goddamn statist fucking ghosts.
Oh man. It is weird how there has been this sort of reversal within the last 100 years of Democrats and Republicans. Like back in the day, the
Yeah.
Democrats were like the Southern Party for like the slave owners and shit, you know. And nowadays, like, I mean, obviously we don't really have slave owners anymore, but the Republicans are more known for the party of the South, like conservative values and shit. But you know, it's American politics are very strange because it's so like just more extreme. I mean, everything's more right wing in America for a
Yeah.
start. Like so much more right wing. I mean, the Democrats are basically the British conservatives, and the Republicans are like UKIP if they actually got like elected.
Yeah.
You know, like it's we don't. There's no Labour Party or Lib Dems in America.
Fuck.
It doesn't exist. Um, I mean, I guess the Democrats are, you know, could be you could equate them to like Tony Blair's sort of Labour. But even then, I think like it's a bit further right, you know. I mean, as an enlightened
I'm just
centrist,
trying to imagine like how much the American people would hate someone like Tony Blair.
Mm.
Like the way he looks and shit, like they would
Oh yeah,
he would not
yeah.
make it at all.
Fuck no. Well, neither would most of them, though,
Yeah.
would they?
But
Could you
that's what
imagine
we're
Theresa May?
that's what we were saying, isn't it? Like Americans like to have strong leaders, we like to have leaders that we're not scared of.
Yeah, exactly. We like having little small leaders. Like, well, I guess Boris isn't that small,
Yeah, but he's a
but
bumbling idiot, you know, we're like, oh,
but
he's
that's a
harmless.
no. Well, that's what I was gonna say. But that is so deliberate.
Oh,
That bumbling
absolutely.
idiot imagery is so fucking
Well, you
deliberate.
gotta remember, it's like, it's not like, in the same way that we're not oblivious to the politicians being, you know, horrible, deceptive bastards, and, you know, we try to somehow mitigate that in our internal calculations of who's the most strategic person to vote for or whatever.
Hmm.
You gotta think that they're making the same calculations and they're like, okay, what kind of personality can I put on that'll, you know, do the job
Hmm.
of deceiving enough people?
Yeah, we view Boris as harmless.
Boris Johnson.
We view Boris Johnson as harmless because yeah, he looks like a fucking moron.
Winnie the Pooh if he was a cocaine addict.
Yeah, he. He looks like sort of like Mr. Bean if he was like 100 pounds heavy or whatever.
Sure.
You know.
Mr. Bean crossed with a bag of wheat.
But I mean, I
And
don't mean
flour.
I don't mean like Rowan Atkinson. I mean like how Mr. Bean like moves
Yeah, yeah,
around,
yeah.
and, like. But if he was like fat, you know, like if Mr. Bean was severely overweight, that's Boris Johnson kind of.
Yeah.
Oh
It's turning into a panther.
hello. That's Mr. Bean. He only says like hello and like
Hello.
If you ever see Mr. Bean, he never speaks.
Oh yeah, I have
He
actually.
just says like wow, and sometimes says oh.
Lamp oil, rope,
Number because at some point the recording stopped. So
Yeah, literally like I'm pretty sure wasn't this the issue that happened like the first time we tried to record 11?
yeah, and I think it was also like around 50 minutes. They just like it's just.
It just caved in.
But I think
yeah.
we did more and lost more there.
Yeah, we definitely did more because we went on a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even remember what we were talking about actually, even though it's like literally 10 minutes ago.
Mm.
That we realised that it wasn't even recording anymore.
Pure waffle.
So we're sorry about that. We actually discussed what the true meaning of life was.
Secrets of the
Um,
universe in their
and
entirety.
I revealed that I had my, a personal connection with God,
Mm,
and what he told me about the nature of reality. But I guess we're gonna have to save that for another fucking episode, to be honest,
mm.
because you know, fuck going over all that again. I mean, it's interesting, but it's not that, you know,
It's not that. It's not
it's not
anything.
that
It's not
interesting. I
anything
mean,
to write home about.
if you want to know what God thinks, read the Bible.
Yeah, I mean it's all right there. Like, stop being lazy and fucking read. You're like,
Stop being lazy. Read the Bible. Read the Quran, and then
take your pick.
fucking read some Hindu shit. Read some Buddhist shit. Don't fall into one ideology. That's always the problem, right? Just look at everything, see what everything is saying, and don't like ascribe yourself to any one of them. Just agree that all of them might be right, all of them might be wrong. Doesn't matter. J- I think if you the more different viewpoints you have, the more balanced overall your actual viewpoint will be. The more, or at least the more viewpoints that you hear and will entertain, even if you don't believe them, the more balanced your overall like worldview will be. You know?
Yeah. So now that your leg's back,
Oh yeah,
it
back to the leg.
I think it's time to start on some missions. You know.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's time to go on some adventures, man.
I think
You know what I
even
really want to do?
we could do one tomorrow. To be honest.
I think I might have a day off tomorrow. Because we did meet like the last 2 days, and then we're doing this today. I think I'm gonna have a day where I just literally say nothing to anyone, and
But the
just a mute all
temperature's
day.
nice.
The temperature will be nice for ages,
No,
you know.
it's 16 and then it goes down to 10.
Yeah, but then it'll be back up to 16, and then it'll be 24 at some point, and then it'll be fucking 30, and then the ice caps will melt. So we got time.
Right.
You
Well,
know, it's only getting warmer, Majik. You know, every year it only gets warmer. So
you say that, but then we'll have snow in April.
yeah, well that's true. But I really want to I had a cool idea for adventure, which is like exploring the subterranean depths of London, like finding like the because London is crisscrossed underneath with all sorts of interesting stuff under like below it. There's sorts of tunnels, and like you can find like all of London's sewage supplies and shit, and like sabotage it,
Oh, nice.
or like you can find the power supplies. Like there's so many like abandoned like entrances and exits to the underground system, and little paths you can go down, abandoned places that no one's like been down for 100 years or whatever, that are built within like the 1800s. I mean, London is like a three-dimensional city almost, except no one really lives under the ground, but there's still like passageways and buildings and areas that I'd love to see. I've heard loads of people talking about yeah, just talking about like weird stuff they found under. I think there was a guy on Joe Rogan actually who went around like London's underground, and just like saw loads of weird shit. And he was saying like he almost got like arrested for doing it.
Mm.
Because like they were like, yeah, you're literally right next to the whole city's like power supply or whatever. If you like break something, like there's all of like barking or whatever will,
Oh,
the hospitals will just like all the old people will die. So, and
instantly.
all the people in comas and shit, on life support and all that sort of stuff. But I would love that. I think we're in London, so that's already a bonus.
Mm.
Um,
Well, we don't have to like go to the Paris catacombs because we got some industrial catacombs instead.
yeah, exactly. I'd love to see some of that shit.
Do you know of any
It'd be
entrances?
no, and if I did, I probably wouldn't say them on the podcast.
Mm.
Um, just so that if we ever did do this, no one would know where we're going in.
Mm.
Uh, or that I just don't. Yeah, but I don't actually know any places that you could go in. I think there is an abandoned railway station somewhere. Well, I know there's a bunch of them actually, but there are like close to where we are, there are like abandoned train stations and stuff.
No.
But whether you can actually get in that way or they're blocked up, I don't know.
I would like to like go buy some train tracks, you know.
Yeah,
'Cause there's a lot
like
of like you see a lot of just like overgrown and abandoned like little buildings and small things and stuff.
yeah. I'd love to see some of that shit. I think it'd be really cool. It'd be cool if you found like a street underneath the ground or whatever. Because we build on top of shit, you know. The ground rises, we build. That stuff sinks a bit, and then over many years, the ground rises again. It'd be cool if like there were some parts of London that were just sort of submerged but are still there. I don't know how realistic or likely that is, but I don't know what you're gonna find, to be honest. But yeah, there are definitely some places where I'd like to sort of go on some weird and wacky adventures.
Definitely.
Well, I have finished rolling my zoo, and
Alright.
we've done our little addendum
Mm.
for the podcast, explained what happened. It turns out 11 is a cursed number. Don't know why. I think maybe it's because it's a prime number, but we haven't had that with any of the other prime numbers, so maybe it's not that either. Maybe I think 11's one of those weird prime numbers though, where it's like an ultra prime number. So maybe that's it as well.
Mega, super, mega, ultra.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So this was the podcast. Majik, good podcast.
I'd say it was a pretty good podcast, yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, that's all that matters. Fuck all the haters. Fuck your mum, and fuck your dog.
Because if it doesn't matter, why not?
Yeah, I might be
Yeah.
wounded now, but let me tell you about
Exactly.
when I was really wounded. It was in St. Louis back in 1974.
I'll tell you why. That's because St. Louis, the U.S. Army, put radiation all over the place.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Well-
Some new radiation experiments. St. Louis.
Well, that's how you get the best high.
Look that shit up. Yeah, bro. Breathing in the cadmiums and shit.
Boof that cadmium.
Bro, cadmium, Cadbury, whatever.
Cody.
Tony Blair.
What a wanker.
What a cunt,
Turns
yeah.
out some theater students went with us. And the
Turns
night
out,
before, they
Tony
showed
Blair's a
us
fucking
our
wanker.
house because of David Bowie.
Boris is a sack of flour with the personality
Boris.
of Mr. Fucking B.
Boris is a sack of shit on legs. And we don't buy your fucking dumb man routine, Boris. So stop that.
Imagine like
We make our way up to the stage,
20 years on, yeah.
Hmm.
Boris Johnson,
right up
Yeah.
front.
still
A
in
young,
politics,
dashing lad.
but
Oh, I think meant when he was 20.
no, yeah, 20 years on from now.
Oh, right.
No, he's not a young man. In fact, he's deteriorating.
Yeah, he's shrunk 3 inches.
And he's starting to have seizures and shit, you know. And
Yeah.
and so he's in a wheelchair now.
Hmm.
Imagine Boris Johnson, who's lost like 12 pounds. He's shrunk by 3 inches, and he's in a wheelchair.
Bro, I've got a similar
He's starting
experience to
to
that.
look like
'Cause I
Einstein.
did a video. I mean, I did a video called My Grandparents, and that was.
It's either spring or fall, not summer.
It's basically that. It's pretty tragic. I don't know how conscious they are at this point, how sentient they are.
Ask her, how politically conscious are your grandparents? Who do they vote for?
It's a scary one.
Kiteless.
It's a scary one. Getting old. For anyone who's listening, if you ever see me in the street and you realise that I am just too old, please kill me.
Girls were sticking out their tongues.
Yeah.
And a bottle flew and hit me in the head.
Please just quickly. Doesn't have to be violent. I don't want to be violently executed or anything. It just, if if I get to the point where I can't wipe my own ass and I can't remember anyone's names, and you know, whatever, all that shit, just wipe me off the map. I'm fine with that. And I'm not saying do that with your parents or your grandparents or anything, but me personally, please do that.
Yeah, I
Please.
saw Kiss at a kite festival. Webster College, 1974. I saw John Zorn put ice cream in a trumpet. But I saw Kiss at a kite contest. Brought to you by KSHE, St. Louis, #1 underground radio.
Oscar, you could go into the future and decide, and you could find that London power supply and disable it when you're like plugged into a hospital, so that you can fulfill your wish.
I didn't have any kites of my own.
I was thinking the other day actually about time travel. A lot of people say, you can't go back and change the past because then you wouldn't be able to but then you wouldn't be there to change the past after that, right?
Yeah,
I was thinking, what if it's always been like that?
yeah.
You know what I mean? What if someone went into the past and that changes something that makes it so that they go back into the past again when they are that age, and then their current version of them in that time where they went back ages and then goes back again? And maybe it's just a loop, because that wouldn't really be against any rules, would it? If it was a self-contained loop
Yeah.
of time travel, it wouldn't actually break any of the rules, would it?
I suppose if it's logically consistent.
Yeah. So, don't diss time travel. Who knows? It might exist. It might have already happened. There might be people coming back now. And the only reason why nothing's changing, we're not all disappearing like we've been snapped by Thanos, is because it already happened. And it's going to happen again in the exact same way in the future. So, who knows?
It never ends.
It never ends. You are stuck in a loop.
I thought you were going to say you are the resistance.
You are the resistance.